with no further ado, here is, I'm going to move that down. You may turn that on.
Right here.
Yep. Okay, do the sound check.
Sound check.
Very good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. No further ado, I will turn it over to Jerry VonEhwegen for our program tonight.
I have this too.
There you go. You're in business.
I don't know how to run all this stuff. I think I better sit down.
There you go.
Can you still hear me?
There you go.
Okay, as you can see here,
You're good.
okay.
Yep.
My program title tonight is What Birds, Birding, and Loess Hills Audubon have meant to me, and how a non-birder became a birder. So that's kind of the two main topics I'm going to talk about. Not working. Not on.
Come on.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah. More? Anyone? I guess you're just gonna click on.
This?
Mhm.
That won't work.
I don't know why. It's not working. There you go. Should be able to do these now.
Right here?
Yep, this is your next one.
Okay. Okay, several months ago, I was asked to do a program for one of our meetings, and I said I'd give it a little thought. So after a lot of thought and a little more arm twisting, I decided to give it a go. So I hope you enjoy the program and learn some things about Audubon does and what it did for me. That's just junk from me there. I'd like to thank the following people that might have pictures in this presentation: Jan Null, Randy, Don Pogensey, Lauren Doc Hansen, Rex maybe. And I have a lot of pictures in here from the Cornell lab. That was the easiest place to get them when I started digging through my stuff. I looked forever and I couldn't find what I wanted. So anyway, I appreciate all the people that take these pictures and share them. One of the themes of this presentation is how I, as a non-birder, became a birder. And by joining Audubon, was rewarded with many, many opportunities to enjoy activities that would not have been possible without all the good people I've met over the last 30 years. Oh, I forgot what button to push.
I think, okay.
There it is. I also hope to show some of the steps that a non-birder might go through to learn more about birds. There's no end to what you can learn. Nobody knows it all. So when I talk about a non-birder, that includes me, because I experienced before I became a birder. And I would guess that that probably includes some of you. So here's Jerry, the non-birder.
Here, let me get that out of the way.
Randy posted this on the web on an email once, and I kind of liked it, so I saved it.
Can I make that go away? Anybody know, can I make that go away? I don't know.
Anyway, it says it's a slippery slope from casual birdwatch to that guy. That's me. Oh, it won't go again.
Okay.
It's probably better down at the bottom.
Better down here? Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Forward.
Maybe.
A non-birder might call these eagles, but of course they're turkey vultures. I had this happen one time years ago. I was out at Ponca State Park. My wife was there on a picnic with coworkers, and after we ate, I took a walk and I looked up and there's like 4 or 5 turkey vultures going over, and there's a guy there with his kids, and he looked up there and hollered at him, "Look up, look at all the bald eagles going over." I'm sure I thought, well, I don't want to ruin his day, so I didn't say anything, but I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people, not just him. Okay, I believe everyone is probably born a non-birder. First 10 years of my life, I lived on a small farm, had a nice grove. I remember we had a pasture with a creek, had good fence lines and everything. Dad rotated crops, so there's probably a lot of great habitat, but first 10 years of my life, I don't remember seeing a bird. I'm sure they were there. So when I was 10, we had to move to another farm near Terrell, Iowa. Same type of farm, but didn't really have much of a grove. And if you're busy going to school, you've never been introduced to birds, you really don't think about them. So anyway, but I do remember hearing western meadowlarks and seeing pheasants, barn swallows. We had nests in the barn, of course, and of course we had rock pigeons. So, but one of my chores, not yet. This is where I lived from 4th grade through college. Those 4 good-looking guys are me and my 3 brothers I grew up with, and you can see there's not much of a grove there. We had fence lines between every field, so I'm sure there were birds there, but didn't remember seeing many. One of my chores was to feed the chickens, so I remember seeing these birds. Saw those every day. Anyway, while I was in school, I don't ever recall going on a field trip. We didn't have county conservation boards or nature centers. I think our county conservation boards and nature centers are probably one of the best things that ever happened in Iowa. And if we'd had them back then, maybe I would have been a birder sooner. So I got out of high school, went to Morningside. Of course, no time for birds there. Got married, had kids, got a job, and our church had softball teams, volleyball teams, basketball teams. So that was my interest when not working. Kids grew up, went to college, got jobs. Next thing you know, I'm almost 50, still a non-birder. Happened quick. A few things that non-birders probably don't know. That millions of birds migrate overhead twice a year. Some birds don't nest in trees, and different bird species are found in different habitats. I never knew that before I became a birder. For example, bank swallows nest in dirt banks. Upland sandpiper is a grassland species. Rose-breasted grosbeak is a woodland species. And I found that that's where you're going to find these birds most of the time, in their normal habitat. So my wife Carolyn and I did a lot of hiking with our friends. We went to places like Stone Park, Preparation Canyon, Sioux City Prairie, South Ravine. Started seeing all these birds and wondered, what the heck's the name of those birds? And through the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, we also heard about old railroad tracks being converted to bike trails. And we decided that'd be a great place to ride bikes. So Carolyn bought me an old Schwinn bike from our neighbor for $15, and that became my birding bike. She got a new bike, and we started riding these bike trails, converged from railroad tracks. So do a lot of hiking and biking and seeing birds, and we were wondering, what are all these birds? There's Carolyn and her bike, and here's me and my bike. My $15 Schwinn bike. It may not look like much, but I put many, many miles on that bike, and it worked very well. I'd put my binoculars over my head and take my little notepad and take off down some trail, and I'd see a bird and stop and look at it and record it. So it was a very good bike for me. Since I had short legs, I had to have a girl's bike. And here's a comparison of bikes. Jerry's on the left, Randy's on the right. The only thing the same about those is they're both blue, but Randy's a little more streamlined than mine. So anyway, so I decided to invest in a golden field guide, which I still haven't used. I need to look something up. I kind of know where everything's at after having it for, I don't know, 30 years, I guess. But it works very good for me. It's kind of had a little bit of use. You can see I've had the Scotch tape that cover on 4 or 5 times, but the inside still works pretty good. Still there when I need it, fits in my pocket. Need to figure something out, look it up. Some non-birder thoughts. I probably had these thoughts one time. I thought all ducks were mallards. I had no idea there was many, many species of ducks. Thought there was only one species of sparrow, and they're all named, there's a sparrow. Black colored birds are all named blackbirds, except for a crow, which is one I kind of could ID. But then I found out later that there's more than one species of crow, too, and a lot of sparrow species. The IOU field checklist card lists 18 species of sparrows that have sparrow in their name. Some people call them LBJs or little brown jobs. I've heard that in our outings a few times. From Donna, maybe. But there are some pretty sparrows, like the fox sparrow, one of my favorites, white crowned sparrow, and several others. So they're not all just a sparrow. And here's the American crow and the fish crow. So you just don't say there's a crow. There's more than one species of crow. So you learn as you go along. My son's first job was with the Sac County Conservation Board, which was pretty close. So we were able to go some of his bird hikes. I remember we were on one hike. I saw a bird out on the water that kind of looked like a duck, and I pointed it out to Todd, and he identified it as a piebilled grebe. He said it sinks like a submarine. So that's my first little bit of knowledge. Then he identified American goldfinch flying over and said it has a roller coaster flight. A little more knowledge. So he learned a little bit at a time. Piebilled grebe sinks like a submarine. American goldfinch has a roller coaster flight. I've learned the song of the American goldfinch, and if I walking along and I hear one flying over. I look up and sure enough, still riding that roller coaster. So there's just tons of things to learn, and you just learn a little at a time. The more you bird, the more you learn. And Carol and I spotted a black bird once with some streaking on the breast and not much more to go on. And we thought we were really found something good. So if you see a bird for the first time and you got your field guide, where the heck do you look? Well, it's black. So I thumbed through the book and found some black birds, and bingo, I found it. It's black, got streaks on the breast. Something really good? Yeah, right. Female red-winged blackbird. Not so great to find after all. So, time for the experts. We got a little better at finding and identifying. One day, Carolyn saw an ad in the paper that WIT was going to have a class on birds taught by a couple of guys named Bill and Jerry. So we signed up and went, probably in 1990, maybe. I think you all probably know who Bill and Jerry would be. Bill back there in the green shirt with Taya in the pink shirt and Jerry in the white T-shirt hiding out back there a little further. And that guy in the front row on the right, this looks like a platoon of soldiers, and Sergeant Bob Nicholson is in charge of this platoon. So we went to a class, and we'd have a little in-class session, and we had field trip. So we went to Bacon Creek. We split into two groups. Carolyn and I ended up in Jerry's group, and he said we're looking for something called a warbler. I thought, well, never heard of that before, but he did spot one, and we saw it. And as I recall, it was a magnolia warbler, probably the first warbler I'd ever seen, or at least one that had a name anyway. Very pretty bird. Like a chestnut-sided warbler, and I got, man, these things are pretty. I think I could get to like these warblers. They ought to be easy to identify. Very colorful plumage. But then I found out, wait, you only see them during migration, mainly in May, most of them. Well, I can probably handle that. But wait, they never sit still, and they're hard to find amongst the leaves. I can work on that too. But most of the females have different plumage than the males. That could be a little problem. But you get a second chance when they come back through in the fall. Great. Whoops, many have different plumage in the fall. So wasn't as easy as I thought, but it sure is fun when you get one in your binocs. The Iowa Wildlife Diversity Program has a flyer out. I think Rex gave that to me, brought it back from an IOU meeting. It shows pictures of 36 warblers found in Iowa, and I've been blessed to see 33 of them. I'm still missing prairie, yellow-throated, and black-throated blue. So I still got a little work to do. The black and white warbler is one of the easier ones. It's an easy color to identify, and it acts more like a nuthatch. Goes up and down the tree trunks, so it's not as hard to find. It doesn't hide in all those leaves. So we joined Audubon. Bill and Jerry, I think, invited us to join, and Bill Huser was president at that time. And the meetings were downtown town. And we did not go to outings right away. Probably a little timid, afraid to go, but finally got, I remember when Bob Moritz would announce the outings when we had our meetings out here, and I finally got up a little courage and thought I'd give it a try. Jan Knoll indicated to me that when she heard about Audubon, she was a little timid about coming too. So it's kind of hard for a non-new birder to kind of, feel comfortable in the group. But once we got coming, we found out it's a great place. She was timid, but now she's a chief people group photographer nowadays and gives everyone orders where to line up. She's got these people all lined up here. First memories of Audubon. I don't remember if this is my first outing, but I remember I was riding with Bob Moritz, a couple other people. It might have been Gary Heineman. We were going to different places, and Bob says we're going to go check out a new area called Owego. So we're going east and this way and that way, and I'm thinking, I'm never going to find this place. Anyway, we finally got there, and there was a large flock of blackbirds on the ground, mostly red wings, and Bob says we should look for rusties and brewers, and I'm thinking, what the heck's he talking about? Rusty blackbird, a little more knowledge. So the more you go, the more you learn. Who would have known that I would end up going there a whole lot? And if I go there 50 times a year, which is probably not out of the question because I go there a lot, I've probably been there 1,500 times. That place I thought I'd never find. Anyway, Bob Moritz said to me one time, says, you must live down there. There's a picture at Owego town site in 2009. I recognize a couple people there. Gary Heineman, Bob and Phyllis, Donna. Chuck, is that you, Ann? Sometime later, Carol and I were invited to go something called a birdathon. Never heard of that before either. Our driver was Chuck Johnson. I believe the other lady was Pat Williams. I know she later moved to Omaha. But we went to Broken Kettle, and Chuck said we're looking for grasshopper sparrows, and I'm thinking, that must be a small bird. Anyway, Chuck got his scope out, and sure enough, he spotted one out in the prairie, perched on the stem, and that was my first grasshopper sparrow. Learned a little more. They look like that. And I find them every year now. I even learned their song. Since I got hearing aids, I can hear them again too. And I find several every year. Now, met some very dedicated birders. Anybody recognize this guy?
That's right.
And we go birding winter, summer, doesn't matter. Bob has probably been birding in Iowa longer than anybody else. He's been birding over 75 years. And to put it in perspective, Bob was birding when I was in 4th grade. And we got some fun birders too. This is Bob and Phyllis out at Adams Homestead. We had an outing out there one year, and Bob and Phyllis got their picture taken. One memory I have way back when was the IOU bird hotline. I don't know if anybody, Bill or Jerry, do you remember this? Once a week, you could call a number, dial a telephone number, hear a recorded message about where the birds were being seen. I remember the guy had a high-pitched voice. He'd go on and on. I'd get my notepad out. And if there was something close I might be able to go see, I'd write it down. And if I missed it, I'd call the number again. Now, of course, somebody finds a bird everybody knows about right away. A little different then. So a little bit about some of the opportunities that I've had since I joined Audubon, that things I never would have got to do otherwise, and I've enjoyed all of them. I led outings for 15 years to many places, but when I first moved to Sioux City, I really knew nothing about any of those places, knew nothing about the surrounding towns for the most part. Went to Morningside 4 years, but never paid any attention to surrounding towns. If you're busy on campus, no reason to go anyplace. The only town I did remember was Hinton because I got caught speeding there on my way home one weekend. So every time I go through there, I remember that. And I'm sure there's been a lot of people caught in that town. Where is Salix? Anyway, after college, I got a job in Sioux City. Our church had a softball team, and our coach said, we're going to play a tourney this weekend in Salix. I said, where's Salix? I didn't even know where Salix was. He said, just go south in 75, 15 miles. I found it. But would have thought that like 30 years later, I can find all kinds of birding places never knew existed. Towns like Luton, Sloan, Whitey, Smith, and Hornigoto. And that's without GPS. I've especially enjoyed projects where bird species and bird numbers are identified and recorded, which includes our Christmas bird counts, great backyard bird counts, birdathons, outings, surveys. I did a survey for the 3-year project for the DNR in the Loess Hills near Pisgah a while back. But the biggest project I worked on was the Iowa Breeding Bird Atlas that Maria, forgot your name, just showed us that they brought back from the IOU meeting. And there's on the IOU website, there's a reported detail report. And it lists trips, blocks, hours, entry, species for the volunteers that worked on the project. And I ranked first in hours contributed by volunteer. There were 6 staff and committee members listed in front of me. And that report says that I made 175 trips. I worked in 65 blocks for 376 hours. I made over 3,000 entries for 120 species. And I worked in several counties. And Vern Cummins, my friend, went with me, and I think Jan went with me a few times. And also I received a Sibley Guide to Birds as a gift from the IOU in May of 2010 for most confirmed nestings, recorded by a volunteer in 2009, which was kind of nice. And the reason I'm listing all these things is not to brag that I did it, but it just shows all the opportunities that birds and Audubon provided for me. And I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff. So I wonder what the heck I would have been doing all those years if not part of Audubon. So it's been a blessing to me to be able to do all these things. Little talk here for non-birders or beginning birders that I think needs to be mentioned. I read the IOU website post about every day and see where birds are coming, and kind of gives me an idea what to look for. And sometimes when they do their post, they use the 4-letter alpha code to identify a bird. And I doubt that a new birder or a beginning birder and a lot of birders would recognize a lot of those 4-digit code or 4-letter codes. And they sometimes use jargon too, like puffies. And need to remember, not everybody reading that has been birding for 30 years. I looked up jargon. It says special words or expressions that are used by a particular profession or group that are difficult for others to understand. So I believe I can figure out buffies as a buff-breasted sandpiper. But it would be easier if you just say buff-breasted sandpiper for us beginning birders. So Bill and Jerry are disqualified from answering this. Does anybody know what RNEP would be? That's a bird, by the way. When I saw it, I couldn't get it right away, but you know, you can Google it and find it, but that would be ringneck pheasant. How about RBWO? Anybody got a guess?
Red-breasted woodpecker.
Close. Got that second word. Yeah, red-bellied woodpecker. Those are probably a couple of the easier ones, but you know, I see that and I think, well, what if a beginning birder's reading that? They have no idea what you're talking about. So I think it's, you know, just looking at it as a non-birder. Another opportunity I had one time a few years back, I had the opportunity to present a bluebird program at Jan's daughter's second grade class at Bryan. So I threw a couple pictures in there. I had a bluebird nest that I saved to show them. So that's her class out at Bryant. I did it for the eastern bluebird. And I showed them a nest. I had it in a jar there. I kept that out of one of my boxes. And that was another thing I enjoyed doing and never would have happened probably if I wouldn't have joined Audubon. Another thing about our outings that I enjoy is we enjoy seeing a lot of birds, but we also enjoy seeing lots of other things, not just birds. Thought I'd throw a few of those in there. Here's a snapping turtle at Badger Lake talking to Rex. And shortly after he took that picture, Bob Nicholson squatted down. Bob picked up a stick and he squatted down to talk to that turtle, and that turtle lashed out at Bob and almost knocked him over. But he regained his balance, thankfully did not fall over. But I was really shocked how far that turtle could snap. It almost reminded me of a rattlesnake. So I'm not getting close to him. Just some of the other things we enjoy, fritillary and butterfly milkweed. One of my favorite flowers. Partridge pea. Yucca. Blazing Star. This is down on Owego Road at Owego, that place I thought I'd never find. These bloom down there every year. I make a point to go down there in the fall when they're blooming. There's a whole ditch full of it, just really pretty flowers. This is a Luna moth. We found this at Fowler Forest Preserve on an outing. Luckily, we had a man with us. I believe Bill Zales identified that for us. So you never know. See a lot of butterflies, red spotted purple. Black swallowtail on blazing star. Buys them up at Broken Kettle. Always fun to see. Bloodroot in the woods. I was at Bacon Creek the other day. I saw bloodroot, Dutchman breeches, and dogtooth violet. Always see those in the spring. There's Bill Zales, one of our plant experts. We also have Brian Hazlitt, who's very good. Bill's always digging something up. Pardon? This is what we call the square. It's a mile north of VonEhwegen on Fayette Avenue. Painted turtles. Just plain scenery. This is the overlook down by Preparation Canyon. VonEhwegen yellow. Go down there in the fall, there's just all kinds of beautiful flowers. There's a lot of swamp milkweed and other prairie plants. Even a cow. This is up on North Ridge Road by Broken Kettle. Old barns. This is Loess Hills State Forest. Even an unfortunate mink. Dot, did Bill stuff this for the Nature Center? What?
Yes.
Okay. So a little bit about the records. Back in the early 2000, about the time I was president, National requested that we develop a written plan and then at the end of the year report what our accomplishments were on that plan. So we came up with some reports and somehow I ended up doing those. We do an outage report. 4 items on there: the date, destination, number of people, and number of species. Looks like this. This is from years 2011 through 2015. So for every outing, I record the date, where we went, how many people, and how many species. It's kind of interesting to see where we go. For example, on June 11th, 2011, we went to Broken Kettle. We did some BBA data. That's how some of you people ended up with your name in that Breeding Bird Atlas book, because when I would report that on there, they asked for other people who were part of it. And on that outing, we had 14 people. We found 52 species. I went through the records for the years. Came up with a couple test questions for you. How many different destinations would you guess that we've birded over the last 20 years? I want to prove we don't always go to the same place. 50? Any other guesses?
100.
100. Sold. According to my records, 76 different destinations. And that's in 4 states. Of course, we can do 3 of those states in 15 minutes just by crossing the river. But the 4th one is Minnesota. So we've been to a lot of places. It sounds like Bill is going to take us through some more places. Here's Potter Creek in 2008. That's in Nebraska. Tucker there on the left. Bill Brown there. Chuck and Donna. Randy. Loess Hills State Forest, 2015. Crampers Lake, 2015. Broken Kettle, 2017. Whenever I look at these pictures, it always looks like the people are having a good time, kind of enjoying themselves. The scariest destination I think we ever went to was Gitche Manitou State Preserve. There were 4 people murdered there in 1973. And I just threw this in there because my youngest brother was on that jury and he said it was a little scary. But we did have an outing there once, and it is kind of a neat looking place. Here's one some of you might get. What might be the stinkiest place to find good birds?
Treatment plant or the ponds down by the, I didn't know. The other bars, where we go.
Very warm.
Yeah. Dairy Pond South. Paul Roizen found a snowy plover there in 2009, which some of the rest of us got to see. And in 2013, he found a whimbrel, but it flew away, and I don't think anybody else got to see it, as far as I know. So you never know where you're going to find birds. These are 2 pretty unusual birds to be in our area, and they were found down there at the dairy ponds. And I do remember Tucker Luter one time. We were there looking at some birds, and he kind of said, it's kind of interesting that we're one of the stinkiest places there is, and we're seeing good birds.
Remember the scissor-tailed flycatcher?
Yeah. And I do an outings participant reports. That's just the name of the people who come to our outings on a yearly basis. Just looks like that. Put it in alphabetical order. End of the year, just see how many people have come to the outings that year. So another question, how many different people would you think have participated in our outings the last 10 years? Any guesses on that? How many?
80.
80. 104. Some people, you know, come once or twice and don't show up again, which is not good, I guess, but that's quite a few people that come to our outings. Also do a programs report. It shows the date, topic, presenter, and number of people present. Looks like that. One line for each program we have. There's from 2003 to 2011. For example, on May 5th, 2005, our speaker was Brian Hazlitt. His topic was Alaska trip, and there were 35 people. And we do an accomplishments report, contains several items. It's basically the result of all our activities, our outings, programs, Christmas bird counts, birdathons, great backyard bird counts, bird surveys, support we give for places like the Nature Center, Adams Homestead, Nature Conservancy. And it includes like volunteers who help out. I know we have many people here that have helped the Nature Center and Adams many years. And if we give donations to them. So it's just a summary of all the things we do. And in the past, I think our presidents have used these reports to help them file the annual report. So hopefully it's helped that project. That's one from 2016-17. And there's 4 goals on there, and whatever the activity is kind of goes under that goal. And just a summary of everything we do every year. Another page. For example, in 2010-11, one of our goals was to participate in local annual Christmas bird counts, and one result was that Sioux City's Christmas bird count was held 18 December. 20 volunteers and feeder watchers located 63 species and a total of 104,44 birds. We've also kept records of the bird species that have been found at the VonEhwegen wetlands since 2002, when Rick Schneider requested that to Bob Moritz, and that current total stands at 225 species that have been found down at VonEhwegen. It's a lot of birds. Just a sample of 4 of them. Short-eared owls. That's one I try to go down and see every year. They show up usually in early November. Always fun to see. A redneck grebe was seen there. That's a pretty unusual bird for this area. Peregrine falcon's been seen there several times. I was down there one day when shorebirds were around, and a peregrine came zooming in, and the shorebirds all took off, and he zoomed down and just missed them. But he didn't get one on that pass. But that's always kind of fun to see when that happens. Yellow-crowned night heron's been there 2 or 3 times. That's a very unusual bird for our area. We also keep a record of the birds that have been found in the Loess Hills State Forest since 2003, when State Forester Brent Olson requested that to Bob Moritz. And that total stands at 144 species. 4 of those species that have been found there: common yellowthroat, what do you call that, Donna? That one you, yeah, one you can never see.
So I think it's Angelina that says years and but she never sees them.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yellow-billed cuckoo. Northern shrike. And blue-headed vireo. And if you're not familiar with the Loess Hills State Forest, it's over 11,000 acres and there's 4 units. Preparation Canyon Unit, Little Sioux Unit, Pisgah Unit, and Mount Damon Unit, Harrison and Monona counties. This is a picture at Preparation Canyon Unit. Very pretty place. I've also monitored 2 osprey nests in our area since 2008. One in Woodbury County, north end of Browns Lake, where osprey were first seen there in 2008 on a cell tower. That's this osprey nest near Browns Lake. Since this picture was taken, the tower people have remodeled that tower, and the current osprey that are showing up there are having a hard time. There's just not as much surface for them as there used to be, and they're having a hard time nesting there now. And but according to my records, 21 have fledged there since 2008, and I report those results to the DNR every year. And in 2013, the Conservation Board and DNR put some platforms over closer to the lake. I call this platform 1. It's the one furthest east. And they have used those 2 or 3 times, but they keep wanting to go back to that tower, and I keep telling them, over here, use these. There's also a platform at Snyder's Bend erected that same year, but that one's never been used. There's also a nest in Monona County on a cell tower south of Sloan that I've monitored since 2010. Rich Pope monitors that nest, and he reports those results to the DNR. And according to my records, that nest has fledged 18 since 2010. And that's what that one looks like. It's a lot better cell tower for the osprey. It's got a nice flat surface. Works very well for them. So the 2 nests combined, according to my records anyway, have fledged 39 osprey. And interesting that there were no hack boxes or releases to get them started. They just showed up on their own. And they usually show up at the end of March. I saw one down there at the cell tower by Browns Lake on March 26th this year. And I have seen 2 there, but they haven't had much luck the last 2 years on that tower. Now to Bob's favorite part, the food memories. I thought a little trivia about food might be interesting, since most of our outings, we find lunch someplace, or we have previous invites, we go to members' homes. We've dined in some famous restaurants. Buffalo Joe's Roadhouse in Smithland is on 100 Broadway Street, formerly called Runs. And nice and quiet at Buffalo Joe's. We were having lunch there, and all of a sudden we heard a lot of roaring and commotion and people pouring in the door and bullying up to the bar and having a good time. And we wondered what was going on. So when we left, we recruited some new burgers. they were having a good time too. We've also dined on the widest main street in the US, 2 places in Ottawa, Franny's Cafe and Suds and Jugs Bar and Grill. And of course, the Old Home Cafe in Pisgah, better known as the Old Home Filler Up and Keep On a Truckin' Cafe. I don't know if any of you remember this, but back in, well, there's a picture of it. It looks a lot better. I couldn't find a current picture, but I was down there a couple of weeks ago. My son was turkey hunting and we had lunch there. It looks a lot nicer than that picture. But we did have a lunch there one outing. And it gets its name from a song written back in the 70s named Convoy. And there was an advertising firm that was doing a television campaign for Met's Baking for Old Home Bread. And I remember seeing those advertisements, and they were kind of popular because it told of the adventures of this truck driver, C.W. McCall, and his dog Sloan. I wonder where they got that name. And of the truck stop that he frequented, better known as the Old Home Filler Up and Keep On the Truckin' Cafe. I remember singing that song. It was fun. Kind of a popular advertisement. Some of the members' homes we've enjoyed over a year. Of course, Chuck and Donna's cabin up at the dam for many years. Always lots of soup and other good stuff. And later also at their home in Sioux City. This is at their cabin. See a lot of good soup around the table and other good things. Always see a lot of waterfowl, snow geese, and later in Sioux City too. Still a lot of good food. And John and Sharon's home near Smithland. Little cabin up on the hill, the northern bobwhite. We'd hear them whistling, bluebirds, hummingbirds. It's a little cabin on the hill. That's where we'd hear the bobwhite. Their home. The northern bobwhite. We didn't see it, but we heard it. This was not taken at their home, but we did see hummingbirds at their places, at their feeders. Chow time, more good food. And of course, Bill and Dottie's prairie home, Broken Kettle area. Lunch in the guest house, brats, homemade ice cream, the antique ice cream machine. Eat on that old, big, long, heavy table or outside in the porch. Cuckoos in the woods. Lunch at the guest house. Brats. Before, real nice and neat. Wildflowers. I said after, but this is kind of during. And everybody's kind of somber. like they're thinking, I wish we could eat instead of that people photographer trying to get a picture of us. And we'd usually find a yellow-billed cuckoo out in the woods. So some things I would have missed if not for joining Audubon and enjoying everything the last 30 years, and seeing all these wonderful birds. These are some things I would have missed. I have a life list of 430 species. That's not outstanding compared to other people, but pretty good for an old non-birder. I've seen 308 species in Iowa, 280 species in Woodbury, 221 in Monona, 192 in Plymouth, and 185 in Harrison. So I keep a life list for those 4 counties, so it gives me an excuse to go out and visit those counties and see if I can find something new. And it's fun to do. Some other things I would have missed. In April of 2005, took a trip to Arizona with Bill Brown, Bob Moritz, and Chuck Johnson. And I saw 148 species and I added 50 lifers to my list, including the elegant trogon, greater roadrunner, painted redstart, among others. So I got to see this beautiful bird, the elegant trogon. That was one of Bill Brown planned that trip for us, and that was one of his goals, is to find the elegant trogon. Beautiful bird. I was going to have Jerry do this song, but I forgot to tell him, so skip that. Unless he's ready. Saw the greater roadrunner. That's a neat bird. Painted redstart. Beautiful bird. Not to be confused with the American redstart that we have here. So we had so much fun that Bill and I decided, we went back again in 2006. By the way, in case you didn't know it, Bill Brown and I considered ourselves as the other Bill and Jerry. We are the lesser known Bill and Jerry. But on that second trip, had 143 species, 15 more lifers. Saw a hermit warbler, blue-throated hummingbird. There's the hermit warbler. And the blue-throated hummingbird. I remember we were sitting, waiting for that bird to show up. We were sitting on a bench, and it finally came to the feeder. So then 2007, we went to Texas. Bill Brown, Chuck Johnson, and I found 123 species, picked up 26 more lifers, including the crested caracara, ring kingfisher, and plain chakalaka. That's what a crested caracara looks like. I like those birds that are easy to identify. Ring kingfisher. And the plain chakalaka. This was another one I was going to have Jerry to do, and I forgot to tell him. But it makes funny noises. A raucous horse, cha-cha-la. And we did hear that. bird calling. Another thing I would have asked, back in 2005, there was a huge owl invasion in Minnesota. And I read about it, and I think on Minnesota Bird Hotline, I figured out where they were located and where you could see them. And I waited for a couple of days of good weather forecast, and I just took off on my own and went up there for the day and stayed overnight. And I was blessed to find 25 great gray owls, not all at the same time, usually just one, maybe one or two, and 6 northern hawk owls and 1 boreal and some pine grosbeaks. So that's what the great gray owl looks like. I saw 25 of those just driving around, see one or two at a time. It was amazing. And 6 of the northern hawk owls. And the prize was the boreal owl. I had read where it was supposed to be, and I found the place. And I drove there, and there was a few other cars around and people walking down the road. So I just walked down the road there and looked in the bushes, and there it was, staring. That's not the one there, but it was in the bushes. But I was very fortunate to find those owls, and that's what I would have missed, but would have never joined Audubon. And I did a Eastern Bluebird Trail at Bacon Creek for 14 years. Carolyn asked Don Schneider to call the city and see if it was okay to put up boxes out there, and she got the okay, so put boxes up out there at Bacon Creek, getting them ready. I usually took them down every year and put them up every year in March. Oh, what happened, Don? Says you are screen sharing.
What did you put?
I thought I pushed this one.
All right. Nope. Okay. Don't worry.
There you go.
I think I hit the wrong one.
Yep.
Sorry.
Good. Were you done talking about that?
Yeah, this is what I want.
Okay.
Yeah, this one. So checking, finding eggs. There's 6 there. That's a good clutch. Find babies, it's always fun. And then you find that one that says, "Don't mess with me." And my results for those years, had 45 good broods, 178 fledged, and also fledged tree swallows, and had a nest of chickadees one year, 6 chickadees. And I found out that bluebirds are very good housekeepers, but tree swallows not so good. They make a mess. And this is a long story here, but I just want to point this experience out. I did a 3-year project for the DNR in the Loess Hills near Pisgah. And there was 2 different farms. One was pretty close to a house, but the other one was pretty remote. And I had to park on a dirt road, climb over a fence, walk up on a ridge, go through an electric fence, and I'm up there on this ridge all by myself, out in the middle of nowhere. I can't see any houses, no roads. I can't hear anything. It was real quiet. All I could hear was grasshopper sparrows and meadowlarks, birds singing. I'm standing there and think, man, this is cool. And I got to thinking, something happens to me out here, nobody's ever going to find me. But I made it out. And many, many other activities, too numerous to mention. And I've been blessed to be part of Loess Hills Audubon for over 30 years. It's been a pleasure learning a whole lot about birds, but even more enjoyable finding them, identifying, enjoying their beauty and songs, and meeting and birding with all the great people who also like birds. And so I just like to thank everybody that has been part of it, because I've enjoyed it, and I've been blessed to enjoy birds and all this stuff I got to do. So I would like to close with a little poem. I wrote this poem back in 2003. If I'm having a bad day or feeling low, I just jump in the car and go birding and get pleasure out of that. So I wrote this poem called God's Birds in 2003. Thank you, God, for creating birds. Their beauty cannot be described with words. You made the hummingbird so very small, and the sandhill crane so stately tall. All different colors, so pretty and bright. The blazing orange of the black burning warbler's throat is quite a sight. Scarlet tanagers are a brilliant red. Many beautiful colors adorn the male wood duck's head. In spring, the lovely warblers are here for too brief a stay, as they migrate north in the month of May. Kentucky, Canada, Magnolia, Cape May, blue wing are some of the best. But the golden wing and northern parula also bring a thump to my chest. Several species of shorebirds roam the mud flats as they migrate through. Sandpipers, godwits, dowitchers, phalaropes, avocets, and the dunlin too. All shapes and sizes, and some with long curved beaks so neat, probing the earth for various morsels to eat. The waterfowl fill the skies and lakes. What an amazing sight our good Lord makes. Pintail, widgeon, merganser, ruddy, and goldeneye. We're so blessed to have them all fly by. Vireos, flycatchers, owls, eagles, gulls, terns, and thrushes too. One of my favorites is the bluebird, so blue. The white-throated sparrow sings a lovely song. Old Sam Peabody all day long. Oh no, did it again.
Back, but
Do what?
upper left or back.
So close to the end. Is it any wonder why there are millions of bird lovers, many who work to preserve habitats and the piping plovers? God made all these wonderful birds to grace our life. They certainly make me feel closer to my dear departed wife. When I get to heaven and see my loved ones again, I'll praise the Lord Jesus for forgiving my sin. I'll give Carolyn a hug and we'll have a long talk. Then I think we'll go for another nice bird walk. A nice long bird walk. Amen. I'll take any questions.
Questions?
Yes, I have one. You said at one time you were not a birder. When did you become a birder?
Well, I guess it kind of grew over the years, but it's probably when I was 50 years old when I started. And just riding, just hiking and biking and seeing, and then bought a field guide and went to Bill and Jerry's class, learned more, and just kind of then joined Audubon. So I'm not sure when I became an official birder. But I was at least 50 before I got started. So kind of late to start. But it was fun.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll give you a hug. Wonderful. Wonderful.
We're all fortunate that you started bird watching. You shared a lot with all of us, and we're glad you continue to do so.
Thank you.